Now, this is the worst thing to hit LA Crips since the death of Tookie Williams and Nipsey Hussle. If you ain't heard yet, the Department of Justice just dropped a bombshell. Big U, Loose Cannon, and Brick Baby just got hit with federal RICO charges tied to the Rolling 60s Crips, and it ain't looking good. They got 19 people wrapped in the first federal complaint, and it looks like the feds have been on them for a while. They're saying Big U and Big U Enterprises was moving foul. Everybody you see on the screen right here, yeah, the feds are the ones that are claiming they helped him make it all happen. But check this out. Brick Baby isn't just caught up in this case. The feds also have a separate indictment on him as well. But it's sealed for now. That means nobody's gonna know what's inside until he steps into court and they crack it open. And if history tells us anything, sealed indictments never end well. Now let's keep it a buck. This is no surprise to anybody involved. Brick Baby and Loose Cannon Ben knew this was coming. This RICO has been in the works for a minute, and they've been waiting for that knock on the door. Matter of fact, the feds already raided Brick Baby and Loose Cannon spots before. They didn't have multiple run-ins with them FBI boys, and you could probably even ask them. They knew the feds been on their bumper for a minute, but now it's game time, and judging by the way the feds play, they ain't coming to lose.
Look, outside of that, the feds picked you up 2 times, right? You said the feds have picked you up on numerous occasions, right?
What part? What time? Yeah. Okay, so look.
So
we're gonna elaborate and we're gonna respond to that. Yeah. No. Because at the end of the day, it's like this, right? Because when the same time they came and picked your ass up, right? They came and got Big Useless, right? And then they rolled on me.
Yeah.
So you already know the answer.
I don't know that they wrote on you. I'm telling you. I'm saying
we dealing with this
2 separate times. Okay, I hear you.
Okay, wait. Hold on.
You're talking.
No, look
to them.
Okay, so listen.
You can't just say know.
Okay, no.
So Brick Baby and Loose Cannon just put it all out there last night. All 3 of them, including Big U, had the feds on them at the exact same time. Brick Baby's crib got raided, and when the smoke cleared, they found an AK-47, which led to federal gun charges. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Brick swears up and down that it was both the federal agents and the state police that ran up in his crib. But when it came time for the charges, the feds didn't press him. It was the state police that charged him. And just when Brick thought he was cooked, the DA rejected the case. But just because he dodged that bullet, it ain't stopped the heat from coming. After the raid, Brick Baby tapped in with his homie, Christopher Lovejoy, aka 600, and let him in on some real unsettling news. Big U was under federal RICO investigation. And it wasn't just for any case. Brick told 600 they were looking for a hot one out of town. And for those who ain't hip, a hot one means a murder. Also, that means whatever went down ain't staying local. The feds are connecting dots across state lines. And I'm sorry, but when they start throwing out-of-town bodies in a RICO, it doesn't look good.
600, that go back to you. He told you, the feds talked to him and told you what?
You understand? I'm with Brick at this time. I was his savior to bring it back to the hood. He telling me everything what's going on, so I know what's going on with the case and everything else. So he's telling me, man, the feds be on all your videos, bro. They like, man, Lovejoy gives us a tour of the hood every day.
He telling me.
They watch all your videos. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, huh? Why watch my video? Like, whatever. But he's like, yeah, bro. They found the chop. I'm like, okay. So I didn't really think nothing of it because, like I told you, my whole stance with him at that point was he never told before this. So I just assumed that he was in some hot grease and he had whatever he had coming from the legal system. So I never really followed up on till time started going by. Like, nigga, what's up with that case? They start going around it. You feel
no, 600. Your first red flag was when he started telling you the feds was telling him about Big U. Feds don't telling you unless you.
So that's what he telling me. He like, bro, Big U on fire, bro. It's ugly for Cuz. They want Cuz in jail. They got a RICO on him. I'm like, yeah. He like, no, but you ain't got nothing to worry about. It's a Big U RICO, not a 6-0 RICO. Everybody who he been dealing with, they tied Cuz to a hot one out the way. I'm like, ooh. He said, yeah, it's ugly. I'm like, damn.
That's the thing. The fact.
So that hot one out-of-town murder they're talking about, that's the 2021 murder of Rayshawn Williams. Now, Rayshawn Williams wasn't just anybody. He was Big U's son's best friend, and he actually lived with him at one point in time. Fast forward, Rayshawn ends up found dead in a ditch in Vegas with multiple gunshot wounds, execution style. That right there is not even random. That's personal. Now, here's where everything gets crazy. Just last week, Christopher Lovejoy, aka 600, took to social media and dropped a bombshell. He said Rayshawn's family told him that the police found Big U's DNA under Rayshawn's fingernails. Let that sink in. That means whatever happened was personal, close range, and Rayshawn ain't go out without a fight.
And we got some pretty disturbing news, man. And y'all remember a couple of days ago when I mentioned that case where the kid, the football player, you know, it was Big U's son's best friend, played on the football team, who was living with Big U, was killed. And they were saying that Big U didn't show up to the funeral, never contacted the mother for any type of support, anything. Just blocked her and everything, right? It was just like, damn, bro, like you always say if you know anything about these gang murders, to give you the information. But when the football player is the best friend of your son who was living with you, turns up dead, you don't want nothing to do with nothing, right? So the news came out today, this morning. The mother said that Big U has been denying to give his DNA. So they had to send a warrant to get Big U's DNA. You want to take a wild guess whose DNA came back on their son? Big U, Eugene Henley's DNA, came back on her son's fingernails.
Wack 100 ain't waste no time jumping in the mix. He followed up by posting a phone call between him and Rayshawn's family, and let's just say, it didn't disappoint. On the call, the family straight up tells Wack that the police plan on arresting Big U by the end of March, early April. You heard that right. Not a maybe, not a possible. They're saying it's a done deal. And the way they predicted it played out exactly on timing.
Gotta go pay this conspiracy. So,
yeah, they started DNA test in my brother's nails.
Okay, so, that's bad work.
So that means my brother.
Now that's what y'all been hearing. This one ain't nobody heard. Let me find this shit.
Since of April.
Hey, they still ain't arrested you, nigga?
Well, they told me between me and you, please, between me and you, don't tell nobody because they don't want nobody to know. They're going to be making an arrest the ending of March, the beginning of April.
She told Wack, don't tell nobody.
She told Wack, don't tell nobody. And what Wack do? Tell the whole internet? Now Wack's excuse? I had to tell the internet. If I didn't, they're gonna look at me a certain way. Come on, bro. We know you about the content and you don't like Big U. But hey, right on cue, everything that's been floating around on the internet for a year and a half, Big U, Loose Cannon, Brick Baby, Rayshawn Williams, is now finally coming to light. And just like that, right on the exact date people were speculating, the feds pop out with a federal RICO indictment against Big U and 18 other Rolling 60s associates. This morning, the hammer finally dropped.
Good morning. I'm Joe McNally, the acting United States Attorney here in Los Angeles. Today, we're here to announce federal criminal charges against Eugene Henley Jr., a career criminal known as Big U, who used his contacts and leadership role in the Crips criminal street gang, the entertainment industry, and a youth charity to further his own criminal enterprise, an enterprise that engaged in murder, extortion, robbery, human trafficking, COVID fraud, and other felonies. Mr. Henley and several other individuals linked to him and his criminal enterprise were charged in a criminal complaint with federal racketeering conspiracy. Mr. Henley is a fugitive, and he is currently wanted by federal law enforcement.
Now here's where it gets spooky. Turns out the feds ain't just been watching the streets. They've been watching the podcast too. They've been locked in on the podcast scene, taking notes, peeping the clips, the shorts, all that. And if you've been on one of these pods talking the last 4 years, you might be in some serious trouble. It all started with the murder of Rayshawn Williams. When they started digging into the murder of Rayshawn, that's what put Big U and the Rolling 60s under a big microscope. And now they're officially saying, in their opinion, that Big U was responsible for the death of Rayshawn Williams. Yeah, they ain't looking at him. They pointing the finger.
They said Mr. Henley is a widely known leader within the Rolling 60s. He rose to prominence in that gang decades ago, and he has since been a fixture on the internet, talk shows, and podcasts, all things that law enforcement have looked at closely as part of this investigation. He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur, running a music label, and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing options, which purports to help at youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high crime areas. The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar, and a cheat, and the criminals that enabled him. For example, Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body in Las Vegas off of the I-15 freeway. He then attempted to evade and obstruct the investigation into the murder, including ordering witnesses not to speak with law enforcement.
All right, now let's break down why the feds are pinning Big U to the murder of Rayshawn Williams. So check this out. Rayshawn Williams wasn't just some random person. He was actually signed to Big U's record label, Unique Music. On January 20th, 2021, Big U sent Rayshawn to Vegas to record at a Grammy-nominated studio. Not only that, Big U paid for the studio time and an Airbnb for the week. The plan was simple: record a bunch of music, and Big U was going to pick the best tracks that he thought he could push. But here's where things get messy. According to the feds, when Rayshawn touched down in Vegas, he wasn't really locked in like that. Instead of taking advantage of the opportunity, Rayshawn was moving weird. He would pop up and record one day, and then disappear for a couple of days, and then pop up again and randomly record. Eventually, somebody called Big U from the studio and was like, "Yo, we seen a lot of your money, but we ain't seen a lot of your artist." And Big U wasn't feeling that. According to court docs, he got heated, grabbed with his right-hand man Robinson, and hopped in the car and drove straight to Vegas nonstop. Now the next part is where it gets real suspicious. Big U pops up at Rayshawn's Airbnb at 2 a.m. on January 24th. When he confronts him about not going to the studio, Rayshawn gives him some BS excuse like he didn't have a ride. Now, if that was really the issue, it must not have been that serious, because Big U set up another studio session for him the same day for 7 p.m. And later that evening, Rayshawn pulled up to the studio with Big U at 9 p.m. According to the feds, they pulled up, listened to some tracks, recorded some more music, and then left at 12:30 a.m. This is where things take a turn. The feds believe that after leaving the studio, that's when Big U turned his phone off, because from 12:30 on, his phone stopped reporting data. But here's what they do know. Around 1:13 a.m., Big U and Rayshawn arrived back at the Airbnb, caught on surveillance. Rayshawn went inside and grabbed all his belongings, even though his checkout time wasn't until the following day. After grabbing everything, he got back in the car with Big U. Now, why is that suspicious? Because why would Rayshawn grab all of his belongings if nothing was wrong? And this was the last time he was seen alive. From there, Big U's phone stays off until 2:15 a.m. Then, at 3 a.m., a witness sees Big U at the studio, but Rayshawn isn't with him. But not only that, when they see Big U, they say he's drenched in sweat, and they ask him why, and he says he just left the gym. But 6 hours later, at 9 a.m., Rayshawn's body was found in a ditch with multiple gunshot wounds. According to the investigation, between 1:13 a.m. and 2:15 a.m., Big U drove Rayshawn out to North Vegas, shot him, dumped him in a ditch, and drove back to the studio. Hold on, it gets deeper. Witnesses say that earlier that night, before they left the studio, they saw Big U and Rayshawn get into an altercation with each other. And why? Because while he was in Vegas, Rayshawn recorded a song that Big U took as a diss track. That's right, your own artist is dissing you in a studio that you paid for. Now, the feds don't have the footage of the altercation, because after Rayshawn's body was found, Big U went back to the studio and instructed security to wipe everything. Security cameras, security audio, all of it. But what they do have is firsthand witness testimony from somebody who saw the whole thing go down. And that's why in the feds' eyes, Big U ain't just a suspect. He's responsible for the entire situation.
Answered questions when he was down there. They asked him when the last time you saw this person or this person, that person, and he told them, 6 months, a year. Nigga, it's not believable that a human being went that long without washing their hands, because your skin get up under his nails. You know, you had to see him, so he kind of himself saying he ain't been around him, but his DNA, but that ain't even the worst. The worst ain't even come out. So I told Six, until it come out, you don't say nothing, it come out, it's in the blog.
So when Big U got questioned, the feds hit him with basic timeline questions. When was the last time you seen that person, this person, over there, over here? And Big U, he tried to play it off like, I ain't seen him in 6 months or a year type answers. But here's where he messed up bad. See, the problem is Big U's DNA was found under Rayshawn's fingernails. Let's be real, ain't no human being not showering for 6 months to a year. Sorry. So that means at some point recently, he had to have seen Rayshawn. And that means he basically told on himself. He's out here claiming he ain't been around him, but his DNA was. Make that make sense. And the crazy part, that's not even the worst of it. There's even more dirt that hasn't hit the surface yet. And according to Whack 100, he told 600, just wait on it. When it comes out, it's gonna be everywhere.
As I said, Mr. Henley is a widely known leader within the Rolling 60s. He rose to prominence in that gang decades ago, and he has since been a fixture on the internet talk shows and podcasts, all things that law enforcement have looked at closely as part of this investigation. He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing options, which purports to help at-youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high-crime areas. The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar, and a cheat, and the criminals that enabled him. For example, Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body in Las Vegas off of the I-15 freeway. He then attempted to evade and obstruct the investigation into the murder, including ordering witnesses not to speak with law enforcement.
All right, let's break this down piece by piece. So first off, that whole I ain't seen him in 6 months thing, that don't even make any sense. If there are eyewitnesses that saw you and Rayshawn at the studio the same night, how are you gonna claim you ain't seen him in 6 months to a year? On top of that, Rayshawn lived with you at one point, was signed to your label, and you sent him to Vegas. Not seeing him in 6 months? Not buying it. Now let's clear up the misconception that Big U's DNA was found under Rayshawn's fingernails. Here's the actual truth. The feds did get Big U's DNA. They did test it, and the results were inconclusive. That means they can't fully confirm his DNA, but they're not ruling it out. Now let's be real. Rayshawn probably had a lot of people's DNA under his fingernails. His girl, his mama, his kids, but the feds aren't gonna rule out Big U. And still, this murder is what kicked off the whole RICO case. Without Rayshawn's murder, this RICO case wouldn't exist. But let's be clear, this case isn't just about the murder. Big U is also getting hit with fraud, extortion, and human trafficking charges. Now let's talk about this human trafficking charge. So when people hear human trafficking, they automatically think it's some crazy operation, right? But the real charge here, the feds are saying that Big U just moved some prostitutes across state lines. And here's how it allegedly went down. Big U had a woman named Armani, who he was also intimate with. According to the feds, she was recruiting and transporting women to Big U's events. They say she would bring them around anytime him and his crew wanted them at their parties. Now, one of these situations actually got caught on a wiretap. The feds claim in November 2022, Big U paid Armani $1,000 to transport 3 women to Las Vegas for prostitution and other crimes. So the feds didn't go straight to Big U at first. They went to Armani. June 2023 is when the feds pulled up to Armani's house and hit her with the receipts. We got wiretaps, we got surveillance, just own up to it. Armani caves. Yeah, I set up the girls. I ain't no pimp. I just bring them around when needed. But here's where it gets diabolical. The feds say, don't tell Big U what's going on. And she agrees. But not even an hour later, she's calling Big U. Now remember, at this point, she knew she was being wiretapped. And she still calls Big U on the same wiretap. She tells Big U the feds just pulled up, and immediately he tells her to be quiet. Big U immediately mobilizes his team, and the very next day they all go to Armani's house to discuss what happened and their next steps going forward. And after that, Armani quits cooperating completely, and boom, she gets arrested right along with him underneath the same RICO. Big U knew what was up. On another wiretap, he was heard saying, "My lawyer told me don't even be on no phone calls like this." So yeah, the feds are watching him since at least 2022. And if you thought that was it, nah, the feds ain't done. Big U is also getting hit with a string of robbery and extortion cases. And this ain't no small extortion. They're accusing Big U of extorting everybody. Regular people, NBA All-Stars, entertainers, local business owners. Yeah, he was allegedly extorting everybody. And if this sticks, it's looking real ugly for Big U.
The RICO charges against Mr. Henley and his associates reflect a pattern of crimes that runs the gambit from extortion to robbery to murder to tax fraud and to human trafficking, all under the umbrella of a well-organized criminal organization led by Mr. Henley. Additionally, Mr. Henley duped the county of Los Angeles by running a nonprofit named Developing Options, which was set up to pull youth out of the gang life and promote anti-gang solutions. Yet Mr. Henley continued to personally orchestrate violent gang activity that impact our communities.
Now, this is where Loose Cannon and Brick Baby enter the chat. At this stage in the indictment, Loose Cannon and Brick Baby's role in the whole operation comes to light. According to the feds, these two weren't just Big U's homies. They were his enforcers, his henchmen, his thugs, his muscle, the ones who would get their hands dirty. And one of the first big plays the feds break down? The dispensary shakedown. So here's how this one went. There was a local dispensary that had been paying Big U $25,000 a month for protection. But after a while, the owner got sick of coughing up the cash and stopped paying. And of course, Big U wasn't feeling that. Now, according to the feds, Big U hit him with the classic, "Oh, word? You ain't paying no more?" Bet. And what happens next? On July 5th, 2021, over a dozen guys, including Loose Cannon, ran up in the dispensary strapped and ready for action. But here's where it gets crazy. They ain't even wear masks. No ski masks, no stocking caps, just barefaced. They were proud to do it. Why, you might ask? Because they wanted the owner to know exactly who sent them. According to the feds, they made it crystal clear that this was happening because they stopped paying. And they didn't just rob the dispensary. They took everything. Customers' belongings, employees' belongings, all the marijuana, and all the cash from the dispensary. If you were in the shop, you were getting took down that day. Period. Now, this is the part that sounds straight out of a movie. During the robbery, one of the dudes actually calls Big U on FaceTime. That's right, when dude's dispensary is getting emptied out, they put him on the phone with Big U. And according to officials, Big U hit him with the, "Hey, I tried to warn you what would happen if you didn't pay that $25K. And it doesn't stop there. Big U then tells him, "Look, they're bringing all your stuff to my house. Come over here and we can talk about getting you some of your stuff back, but we have to reinstate our original agreement." So the owner actually pulls up to Big U's house. And guess who's sitting there counting up money? Loose Cannon. Now, according to the victim's testimony, Big U looked him directly in the eyes and said, "That's how you rob yourself." Then, to add insult to injury, Big U demands another $10K to make sure this doesn't happen again. But Big U ain't stopped there. He allegedly tells the victim, "Give me a list of all the other dispensaries I can rob, and you won't get robbed any longer. And if we come up on a big enough play, we'll cut you in." Now, at this point, the dispensary owner was done. He was like, "Man, I'm talking, man, dang. After all this, now I gotta rob my own close friends?" So he starts working with the police. And from there, the feds come in and start working on a play to catch Big U in the act. And let's just say, things are about to get real ugly.
So basically, it's like, cause he'll be like, he'll manipulate things. Like, we'll go and do something, and the same niggas we do it to show up to the house like 10 minutes later when we trying to, counting everything, right? And we be like, how the f they get that? Oh, well, we're gonna just give them like $40,000 back and stuff like that. But cause it's actually putting us in paperwork, right? And like doing like real police. I seen get like 20 guns, and when he got 20 guns, he's selling them to the homies. But I'm like, why are you writing down the serial numbers? So it's like he was doing like shit like that, and I didn't catch on. So it was like, I'm waking up now. You get what I'm saying? Because I'm
high-tech shit.
I'm his right-hand man. You get what I'm saying? So when it came down to like dirt and stuff like that, I'm gonna get it. You get what I'm saying? And then like one day,
you know why he wanted to get a dude back to 40, right?
Loose Cannon high-key snitched on himself on No Jumper. So let's run that exact sequence again real quick. They hit the dispensary. Check. While robbing the dispensary, they FaceTime Big U. Check. They tell the owner, "Come to the crib if you want some of your money back." Check. The owner pulls up, gets a portion of his stuff back, and is told he has to get back on the payment plan. Check. Now here's where it gets ugly for Loose Cannon. The victim had already been telling the feds that Loose Cannon was involved, but there was zero evidence and zero surveillance tying him to any of the crimes. So technically, Loose Cannon might have been able to skate on this. But nah, Loose Cannon had to go to No Jumper and tell on himself. He straight up admitted the story, confirming everything the victim said. And just like that, the feds had everything they needed to indict him. And it didn't just stop there. Loose Cannon kept talking. In that same interview, he went on to detail how they robbed Meek Mill on Big U's orders. Then he explained how they ran an extortion play on Rick Ross, finessing him out of $50,000. But here's the kicker. Big U kept all the money and kept Loose Cannon out the loop, and that's how the whole crew fell out.
Cuz it's actually putting us in paperwork, right? And like doing like real police shit. I seen the nigga get like 20 guns, and when he got 20 guns, he's selling them to the homies. But I'm like, why are you writing down the serial numbers? So it's like he was doing like shit like that, and I didn't catch on. So it was like, I'm waking up now. You get what I'm saying? Because I'm
high tech shit.
I'm his right hand man. You get what I'm saying? So when it came down to like dirt and stuff like that, I'm gonna get it. You get what I'm saying? And then like one day,
you know why he wanted to get a dude back to 40, right? Because he was gonna make dude give him 20 for getting it back.
Of course.
And kept you out of it.
Of course. He did that to when I did that to Meek Mills and Rick Ross.
What'd you do to them?
So
the club when you sweated them in the club?
Yeah.
Dude, and Meek and Rick have no idea that Draw sent you at him.
Yeah. No, yeah, they sent that because I called Ross. I'm like, Ross, drop off the 50,000 and we're gonna let Meek live on Crib. So Ross dropped off the 50,000, and so me and the homies we go back. He stopped answering the phone. He stopped picking up.
So let's get this straight. Loose Cannon went on a public platform, confirmed an extortion, a robbery, and then falling out over the money split between the extortion proceeds. Yeah, that's how you play yourself. So based on what's laid out in the documents, Big U and Loose Cannon weren't just Big U's homies. He was their henchman and their muscle. Just like he was out here putting in work for Big U, Brick Baby was doing the same thing. November 11th, 2022, Brick Baby and Big U got caught up on a wiretap. In that call, Brick Baby, identified as Mitchell, was chopping it up with Big U, Henley, about how much money he should give Big U from a robbery they had just pulled off. They robbed dude. That's Brick Baby's work. They made him call his plug, and then they booked him. Translation? Brick Baby made somebody call their supplier, set up a deal, and then they took him down. Now, according to the feds, Big U was expecting a nice cut from this robbery, but because there was 5 to 7 participants, he wasn't happy about the size of his cut. Do you remember the dispensary owner who got took down by Loose Cannon and his crew earlier? Well, after getting robbed, extorted, and drained of all his money for months, he finally started working with the feds. And once that happened, it was a wrap. He wasn't just telling the feds what was happening. He was bringing receipts. Every call, every transaction, on video or surveillance. When Big U called and demanded his weekly payments, recorded. When the owner showed up and handed him the cash, on video. This wasn't a guy just paying protection money. This was full-on extortion. At one point, they had him on a deal where he had to drop off $2,000 every Monday. That's $8,000 a month. And after a while, Big U even stopped pretending that this was a set amount. The doc showed Big U would just call dude randomly like, yo, I need $3,000 for a gift. And dude would have to just send it to him. When the owner started pushing back, Big U reminded the owner how real it could get. The exact quote from the documents, do we need to do another takeover like before? You remember what happened last time, right? You want to go through it again? Let's be honest. At this point, this dude had no choice but to work with the feds. And here's where it gets even crazier. The feds started actually funding the extortion to pay Big U. So every time Big U or one of his people would actually pick up some money, it was either on camera or recorded, and it was the feds' money. By 2023, Big U started to get paranoid. He must have felt the walls closing in because he stopped collecting the money himself. Instead, his right-hand man Robinson started handling the pickups. But here's the problem. The feds already had everything sewed up. This case was just airtight. Now let's keep it a buck. Everybody in this case right now is still innocent until proven guilty. But in my opinion, this ain't looking good at all. To be honest with you, I don't think it was the M case that really made them actually take action. It was the blatant act of defrauding the federal government out of $2 million that actually really put him on the radar and made him have to be taken down. To be honest, the government doesn't really care if black people are out here killing each other or killing everybody in the inner cities. They don't care that much if you're transporting a prostitute across state lines for prostitution. That's just a fact. Started playing with the federal government's money and you saw the IRS logo on these documents. That's when it got real. And in my opinion, the only charges that he's going to plead to is the tax evasion and the tax frauds. I think he might actually beat every case. But if you made it this far, click right here to go ahead and see why Lil Zay Osama was hiding in a shed the other day. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share to be aware, put me in that algorithm because I need a beat here, man. Because I know there's 10 other streamers out there doing it like me, but fuck that little 10. I'm maxed out.